We used to joke that our love was built on Wi-Fi and caffeine. 2 MacBooks, 1 shared espresso machine, and a perfectly divided Google Calendar. That was our thing, streamlined, synced, and always color-coded. My wife, Jessica, handled UX for a buzzy little mental health app, while I crunched numbers in the data analytics pit of a fintech startup. We worked from opposite ends of the same home office, side by side like a two-headed productivity beast. At least, we did, until Thursdays started to smell like lavender and lies. It began with the calendar entry. Therapy session, do not disturb. Every Thursday, 2 to 3:30 p.m. It popped up about 6 months ago, right after we had one of those minor marital hiccups, the kind that ends with a passive-aggressive silence and a bottle of red wine going mysteriously missing. Back then, I thought it was healthy. Noble, even. She was dealing with stuff, trying to be better for us, right? So I nodded and said all the supportive things. That's great, babe. Therapy's brave. I'm proud of you. She never once offered the therapist's name. The thing is, Jess never used to hide anything. She was one of those oversharers who'd tell you what her dreams were about and which font she hated the most in Figma. But suddenly, she had boundaries. Thursday became sacred. Her phone went silent. Her face, flushed and giddy after each session, said more than her tight-lipped explanations ever could. I kept telling myself not to spiral. But you know how it goes. Once a splinter gets under your skin, it doesn't matter how small it is. You have to dig it out, even if you make it worse in the process. I didn't confront her. Not directly. I just started observing, like a curious lab rat with a petty streak. One Thursday, I faked a system outage at my job to stay home and watch. Jess left for her session wearing jeans and a basic tee, but came back in a sundress. Hair slightly curled, makeup a shade more polished. She tossed me a good session and skipped into the kitchen like she'd just had brunch with Oprah. Who the hell comes back from therapy more energized than they left? Later that evening, she left her laptop open. Bless her distracted little heart. I wasn't even trying to snoop. Truly, I just sat down to adjust our grocery budget and noticed her Slack still up. That's when I saw it. A calendar invite. Subject line, client check-in with RS. There were at least 4 identical events going back weeks, all at the exact same time as her so-called therapy sessions. Curious, I clicked into the event. Location, off-site cafe, same as last time winking face. Attached file, Sprint deck, Jessica plus RS, final.pptx. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never winked at my therapist in a calendar invite. I looked closer at the invite sender. First initial R, last initial S. That's when my eyes drifted to her wrist. That bracelet, gold, subtle, engraved on the inside. I never thought much of it until now. She wore it constantly, showered in it, slept in it, even twisted it nervously whenever I talked about our 5-year plan. We'd been together for 4 years. I'd never given her that bracelet. Later that night, I asked her what RS stood for. She blinked once, maybe twice. Oh, that's Rachel Silverstein, a board member. What? Rachel. Right. Cool. I smiled. Just curious. That was the moment I knew for sure. Because Jess is a terrible liar. Always has been. She over-explains when she fibs. But that night, she gave me 2 words and a blank expression. It was rehearsed. Weaponized minimalism. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I dug. Quietly. Strategically. I traced her app's leadership team. No Rachel Silverstein. I checked LinkedIn. Searched Crunchbase. No dice. But I did find something else. A funding announcement dated 6 months back, right around when her therapy began. The company had secured a Series A investment from a boutique angel firm. The lead investor? Ryan Sinclair, RS. He was tagged in the press photo, standing next to Jess. Tall, cocky grin, hand barely grazing her waist. It took me 3 minutes to pull up his college alumni page. 5 seconds to realize they'd gone to the same school. Same class. Same major. I leaned back in my chair, cold all over. She hadn't just reconnected with a college flame. She'd invited him into her startup. Into her life. Into our house, by proxy. And the dumbest part? He looked like me. Just more expensive. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because if Jess wanted therapy, I'd give her therapy. The next morning, I brewed coffee like nothing had changed. Kissed her on the forehead. Whispered, "Love you." And asked if she'd want to do a couples retreat next quarter. You know, reconnect. She lit up like a Christmas tree. God, yes. That would mean so much to me. Perfect. Because I already had the place picked out. A scenic team-building camp upstate. She thought it was just us, and some trust falls with strangers. She didn't know I'd also invited her boss. And someone else, too. Someone from her past she'd hoped to keep buried. Until I unzipped the body bag. Jess started planning our couple's retreat, like it was a second honeymoon. She bought new hiking boots, printed packing lists, and kept reminding me to bring my open heart and vulnerability mindset. Whatever that meant. I nodded a lot and kept smiling like a man who hadn't already coordinated a three-way trapdoor beneath her feet. The retreat itself was part of an executive reconnection program, branded like a fusion of therapy, HR compliance training, and overpriced granola. Jess was sold on it after watching a 90-second promo video with stock footage of couples zip-lining into each other's arms. What she didn't know was that I'd customized the guest list. See, when you call something a corporate wellness pilot, and you happen to be married to a startup darling with funding buzz, people get interested. Especially her boss, Claire. Claire was the kind of exec who used phrases like radical candor and emotional alignment without irony. When I pitched it as a sponsored event, she was all in, said it would signal values from the top. I also told her there'd be opportunities to network with angel investors, which was how Ryan Sinclair got his invite. He RSVP'd yes within 10 minutes. Brought his own duffel bag, too. Jess didn't know any of this until we showed up. We arrived on a Friday, just past noon, to a pine-drenched lodge that looked like the setting for either a mindfulness breakthrough or a polite murder. Jess was beaming as we checked in, squeezing my hand with that performative excitement she used whenever she wanted to prove something. To me, to herself, to some invisible jury in her head. We got to our cabin, dropped bags, and she immediately reached for her phone. Need to ping Claire about Monday's rollout. I shrugged. Oh, you'll see her tomorrow. She's coming. Jess froze. What? Yeah, I said casually, unzipping my hoodie. I invited her. It's a startup-friendly retreat, remember? Networking and mental health. Her expression shifted like someone watching their favorite rom-com suddenly turn into a crime doc. Claire's coming here? Why wouldn't you tell me? I thought it'd be a nice surprise, I replied. You've been saying how stressed you are with work. This could help. She laughed, a short, brittle sound. You hate Claire. Sure, I said. But I love you. She didn't answer that. The rest of the evening passed in weird silence. Jess kept checking her phone, probably debating if she could back out. But she didn't. Couldn't. Claire arriving made it official. Corporate. A work function. Backing out would raise eyebrows. I played my role perfectly. Friendly. Supportive. Exactly the kind of husband a therapist would use as a case study. The next morning, the real show began. Everyone gathered in the main lodge, where a painfully chipper facilitator with wireframe glasses and a Namaste hoodie welcomed us to the reconnection experience. His name was Brent, which felt like a detail from a parody sketch, but whatever. Claire showed up first, hugged Jess, introduced her intentions for the weekend. Then came Ryan. And man, if I ever wanted to slap a jawline, it was his. He wore a Patagonia vest over a linen button-up, his handshake firm, his smile smug. Jess turned as he walked in, and I caught the flicker in her eyes. The kind you can't fake. That little jolt of electricity that says I've seen you naked in a college dorm, and I wouldn't mind doing it again. Ryan's eyes swept the room, landed on her, then on me. And then, he winked. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just an affair. It was a joke to him. An inside joke I wasn't supposed to hear. But here I was, front row. We broke into trust circles later that day. I positioned myself with Claire and a few new couples. Jess got paired with Ryan, thanks to Brent's random grouping. Random my ass. He probably sniffed the tension and thought it'd be good content for his spiritual LinkedIn posts. They were told to explore emotional vulnerabilities through shared memory. I watched Jess giggle at something Ryan said while she traced a stick in the dirt like a high schooler flirting behind the bleachers. Claire leaned over to me. They have great energy, don't they? I didn't blink. Incredible synergy. By dinner, I had everything I needed. See, the retreat wasn't just a setup. It was a camera trap. I'd booked the venue with an event documentation package. Hidden GoPros, drone coverage, lav mics embedded in the decorative rocks around the fire pit. Jess thought we were here to heal. I was here to archive. I caught them that night. Not kissing, not touching, but close. Too close. They walked out past curfew, shared a bench on the edge of the lake, whispering. Her head rested briefly on his shoulder. His hand touched her knee. I didn't need more than that. Not for court. Not for custody. Because I hadn't come here just for revenge. I came to take everything with me when I left. The next day, during the big group intention circle, Brent passed the talking stick around. Everyone was supposed to share one vulnerable truth. When it came to me, I stood up, cleared my throat. I have something to show everyone. Brent blinked. Oh, that's not usually part of this. I waved him off. Walked over to the AV station. Claire looked confused. Jess started to panic. I hit play. The screen behind me lit up with drone footage. Jess, Ryan, the bench, the whispers, the shoulder touch, the knee. No audio, didn't need it. The room went dead silent. Claire's jaw dropped. Brent dropped his stick. Ryan stood, hands half raised like he could somehow explain it away. Jess? Jess stood too. Back straight. Eyes darting, calculating. And then she said it. It's not what you think. Classic. I turned to Claire. He's not a therapist. Not a client. He's your investor. And her ex. And this, I gestured to the screen, has been going on for months. During company hours. On company time. Possibly using company funds. Claire's face flushed. Not with embarrassment, but fury. Legal fury. Jess opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. Don't. Just don't. I looked around the room. At Brent, at the couples, at the people still frozen in place. And then I smiled. Namaste, right? Walked out before she could follow. Left the footage on repeat. Because sometimes, the best therapy session is the one you don't come back from. By the time Jess got back from the retreat, I was already gone. Not in the dramatic, burn it all down kind of way. No, that would have been too generous. I left quietly, surgically, like a man slipping out of a trap he saw coming from a mile away. Her keycard still worked, but the locks had been changed. Technically, the place was mine. I'd bought the condo before we got married, and I never added her to the title. At the time, she called it a red flag. I called it a smart umbrella for rainy days. Turns out, I was the weatherman. I didn't leave a note. Just a clean living room, a half-empty wine rack, and a cold silence that echoed louder than any slammed door ever could. I took my laptop, my passport, my files, and the framed photo of my dad. The one Jess always insisted was too serious for the living room. Everything else stayed. Well, almost everything. I took the dog. We didn't have kids, but Bailey, our scruffy terrier with an anxiety disorder and a grudge against delivery men, was the closest thing to a shared dependent. Jess loved him. Spoiled him, really. Home-cooked chicken. Designer sweaters. Spa days. Once, she said, if you ever leave me, just don't take Bailey. So, obviously, I took Bailey. When she walked into the empty condo that Sunday night, I imagine she noticed the silence first. Then the absence. Then, eventually, the scent of something missing. That's the thing people forget about betrayal. It has a smell. A sterile, post-fire staleness. Like the air after lightning. The text started at 7:03 p.m. Jess, where are you? Jess, why is Bailey's bed gone? Jess, are you seriously doing this right now? I didn't answer. Let the notifications stack like unpaid bills. At 7:28 p.m., she escalated. Jess, call me now or I'm calling the cops. Cute. I screenshotted the thread. Just in case. Then I turned my phone off. I wasn't hiding. I was building. You see, revenge isn't just about public embarrassment. That's step one. The real art is in the aftershock, the slow unraveling. The moment when the person who thought they held the cards realizes they were playing someone else's game the whole time. And my game? It had layers. First, I filed a formal complaint with her company's HR. Technically, I wasn't an employee, but I was her spouse, and I had documentation proving she was in a romantic entanglement with a major investor. That raised legal flags faster than a subpoena at a bachelor party. Claire responded within the hour. Said she was taking this very seriously. Scheduled an internal ethics review. Second, I posted anonymously on Blind, the gossip app for tech employees, with just enough juicy detail to hint at insider drama. I knew Jess's startup was courting Series B funding, and investors love stability. A scandal involving a founder's affair with their own financial backer? Not exactly the branding they wanted. Third, I talked to my lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer. Yet, but a forensic accountant. Because while Jess played tennis with her ex and flirted under the guise of therapy, I'd been quietly collecting financial footprints. lunch receipts, reimbursement forms, office supply expenses that looked a lot like hotel stays. One of them even included Ryan's name in the notes section. Rookie mistake. Jess was always good at lying with her mouth, but not with spreadsheets. By Wednesday, she started showing up at my gym. Yes, my gym, not hers. I'd see her through the glass, pacing in the parking lot, holding her phone like it was a detonator. I ignored her, changed my route, switched to a private fitness studio that cost more per month than our wedding cake. Worth every penny. Then came the emails. Not groveling, not apologetic, strategic. Subject, can we be adults about this? Subject, you're hurting yourself too. Subject, please don't destroy everything. I opened one out of curiosity. She talked about narratives getting out of control, how our mutual reputation is on the line, and how there's still time to repair this. Repair? Lady, you set the house on fire, and now you're asking where the candles went. By Friday, her company had made a statement. Something vague about internal leadership transitions. Ryan's name wasn't mentioned. But the next day, his LinkedIn quietly changed from angel investor and strategic advisor to open to opportunities. I made popcorn. Jess finally showed up at my parents' house. Yes, my parents' house. Because she knew I'd crashed there temporarily, she had a radar for manipulation, and she always liked using the in-laws as a guilt trip elevator. My mom didn't let her pass the porch, just stood there, arms crossed, like the queen of a kingdom that no longer accepted foreign diplomats. She looks thin, Mom told me afterward. Like she's been crying or not eating. Probably both. Do you feel bad? No, I said. Should I? She didn't answer. She just handed me another glass of iced tea. Here's the thing. People always assume you need to be angry to get revenge. That you need to scream, throw plates, set things on fire. But real revenge? It's ice water in the veins. It's watching someone realize they broke something they'll never fix, and knowing you never have to raise your voice to make it hurt. Jess wasn't texting anymore. She was calling. Every morning. Straight to voicemail. Then she tried something new, guilt by nostalgia. She sent a photo of us at our honeymoon in Santorini. Captioned it, "We were happy here." Remember? I almost laughed. Not because the moment wasn't real, but because I'd already forwarded that photo, along with her recent emails, to my attorney. Why? Because the last piece of this puzzle was mine to place. The prenup. See, Jess always thought she was clever for negotiating that prenup. We signed it the week before our wedding. She insisted on it. Actually, said it made things cleaner in case stuff ever got messy. At the time, I thought it was weird. But she was persuasive. What she didn't realize was that the prenup had a clause she'd forgotten. Infidelity voids spousal support. Boom. All I needed was a court-admissible incident, which I now had, thanks to Brent, to the retreat, to Ryan, to that little drone hovering over the lake like a guardian angel with a GoPro. My lawyer filed the papers on Monday. By Wednesday, she was served. And on Friday, she finally broke. Showed up at my door in sweats, no makeup, holding a worn-out tennis racket and crying into a takeout napkin. I made a mistake, she said. I didn't answer. I thought I could handle both worlds. Still silent. I was stupid. It didn't mean anything. That made me smile. Then it should be easy to walk away from. She stepped forward. Can we just talk? Please. I leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. Jess, I said quietly, do you remember what you told me the first time we met? She blinked. What? You said, I don't play games. She nodded, confused. Well, I said, closing the door between us. I do. The door clicked shut, and for the first time in weeks, there was no echo. Just peace. That thick, satisfying kind of peace that rolls in after a storm and makes you wonder why you ever tolerated bad weather in the first place. Jess stood outside for a full 3 minutes, maybe more. I didn't time her, but I felt every second stretch like a pulled thread. Eventually, I heard her walk away. No sobbing, no pounding, just the soft pad of sneakers on the porch steps, and then the distant hum of an engine. I exhaled, slow and deep, and looked down at Bailey, who was curled on his bed by the fireplace, chewing the ever-loving hell out of a stress toy shaped like a tennis ball. Even the dog got the symbolism. Good boy, I muttered, dropping to the floor beside him. You've got better instincts than I ever did. But instincts can be taught. And mine. Mine were getting sharper by the day. I wish I could say that was the end of it. That Jess quietly faded into the background, and Ryan evaporated into the LinkedIn ether. But no, People like Jess don't lose quietly. They try to rewrite the script. And sure enough, by the following week, the narrative started shifting. First came the whispers. Friends of friends, mutual acquaintances, little passive-aggressive. I hope you're okay. Texts from people who hadn't spoken to me since our wedding. Then came the post. God, the post. Jess uploaded a filtered black and white photo of herself. No makeup, messy bun, the whole raw and real aesthetic. Captioned, sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who weaponize your healing. Just because someone has a camera doesn't mean they're telling the truth. Therapy isn't a scandal. Privacy isn't guilt. I'm not perfect, but I'm not a villain. 48,000 likes in 2 days. The comments were worse. You're so brave, girl. Keep healing. Men hate when women grow. You'd think she'd climbed Everest with a sprained ankle and a broken heart, not betrayed her husband and tanked a startup in the process. And the kicker? She tagged Ryan. Yeah, tagged him. He commented too. Proud of you. Always have been. Of course you have, buddy. Especially when she was under you in a lake house in upstate New York. But I didn't bite. That's where they wanted me. Emotional, reactive, messy. That's how people like Jess win. Not with truth. With optics. So I stayed silent. For 2 weeks. And then I launched my own campaign. Not with words. With receipts. I built a clean little website. Anonymous. Untraceable. Just screenshots, video clips, calendar invites, drone footage, and excerpts from emails that showed exactly who Jess and Ryan really were. No commentary. No dramatics. Just the unvarnished, chronological truth, like a crime scene laid out in HTML. I didn't post it publicly. I sent the link privately to 4 very specific people. Her company's board, a tech journalist I'd once helped out with a startup expose, a woman named Vanessa, Ryan's wife. Yes, he was married too. Jess herself. Within hours, the site was password protected by a cease and desist letter. By then, it had already done its job. The board forced Jess into a strategic sabbatical. The journalist ran a piece on ethical conflicts in modern startups, with just enough breadcrumb details for anyone savvy to connect the dots. And Vanessa? Well, she left a voicemail that started with silence and ended with a whispered thank you. And Jess? She finally called me. Not text, not email. Call. I let it ring 4 times before I picked up. Hey, she said, voice small. Jess. I saw the site. Yeah, figured you would. You're really going to destroy everything like this? Everything. I repeated. I think you mean your everything. Mine's doing fine. Pause. You said you didn't want to make this ugly, she tried. No. I said I wouldn't make it loud. I corrected. Ugly's on you. You're enjoying this, she snapped. No. I said, and I meant it. Enjoying implies pleasure. This is more like precision. You made a mess. I'm just cleaning up. She hung up. Good. But the real masterpiece? That came 3 weeks later. It was our anniversary. Technically, we were still married. The divorce was in motion but not finalized, which meant our joint accounts hadn't been officially dissolved yet. And Jess, ever the sentimental schemer, had a habit of planning elaborate surprises on dates like these. Not because she was romantic, but because it played well on social media. Sure enough, she booked a suite at the same hotel where we spent our wedding night. I saw the confirmation come through on the joint card. Room service for 2. Rose petals. Champagne. Classic Jess. Nostalgia as manipulation. So I showed up. Not with flowers. With her father. Yeah, that father. The one who paid her to break up with Ryan all those years ago. The one who'd funded our honeymoon but skipped the wedding. The one she hadn't spoken to since the prenup signing. I found him easily. Turns out, wealthy old men who regret alienating their daughters are eager to make amends, especially when you show them what their daughter's been up to lately. We walked into that hotel suite at 7:12 p.m. She was in a robe, glass of wine in hand, fully expecting someone else. Dad, she choked. He looked around at the heart-shaped tub and the satin sheets. Then at her. I didn't pay you to end up here, he said. She went pale. I let them talk. Stood by the minibar with a glass of water, watching the final dominoes fall. Eventually, she turned to me. Why are you doing this? I smiled. Because you built your world out of lies, Jess. And I figured it was time someone gave you a housewarming party. She looked like she might collapse. I left before she could. Outside, I felt something strange. Not joy. Not even relief. Just completion. Like the last puzzle piece clicking into place. You know what they don't tell you about revenge? It doesn't feel good. It just feels done. The final weeks of our legal entanglement unfolded like the slow credits of a film nobody enjoyed watching, but everyone kept pretending was Oscar-worthy. By then, the media firestorm had mostly burned out. Jess's online sympathy campaign lost traction once screenshots of her therapy sessions and a few not-so-cryptic calendar entries started circulating through her startup Slack channels. Turns out, it's hard to play the victim when your therapist has a six-pack and a profile on a married but curious forum. The board didn't fire her outright. No, that would have required confrontation, and God forbid people in tech do anything that isn't couched in strategic pivots. Instead, they offered her the golden parachute of shame, a quietly worded resignation, a generous severance, and a non-disclosure agreement that basically said, "Don't sue us, and we won't drag your dirty laundry through VentureBeat." She signed. I watched her name vanish from the website's leadership page in real time. One refresh. Gone. Like she'd never existed. Just a LinkedIn ghost with a bio she'd have to rewrite from scratch. Good. She was always great at fiction. But me? I didn't disappear. I did something worse. I stayed. I kept working at my same job. Kept walking Bailey every morning past the neighbors who gave me those tight-lipped nods like they were afraid of stepping on broken glass. I kept showing up to the gym, the same grocery store, the same coffee shop, because the best revenge isn't just about exposing someone. It's about making sure they know you survived and thrived without them. She tried to reclaim the narrative, of course. Posted a reflective medium piece under some pen name that anyone with a brain could connect back to her. It was all very self-awareness and growth, and I lost myself in the marriage. I didn't respond, but I did forward it to her father. Just the link. No context. He texted me a thumbs-up emoji. Weird guy, but I appreciated the sentiment. Meanwhile, Ryan vanished. Not literally. Just digitally scrubbed. His company's website took down the team photo that used to feature him grinning in an unbuttoned flannel like he was auditioning for a farmer's market rom-com. His Instagram went private, then disappeared entirely. The only public trace of him left was a Yelp review he'd left on a microbrewery 5 years ago complaining about the music volume. Guess some echoes last longer than others. I thought about reaching out to Vanessa again, his wife, or ex-wife, now, but I didn't. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. Too much. She deserved peace, not another man trying to bond over shared betrayal. So I let it lie. Instead, I focused on something else. Me. Not in a self-help book kind of way. I didn't start journaling or join a men's group. But I did start doing one thing. Being radically honest. With myself. With everyone. It was intoxicating. Turns out, when you stop living in a house made of emotional drywall, you can breathe again. I told my boss I didn't want to lead the Monday stand-ups anymore. Told my mother I wouldn't be attending any more of her surprise visits. Told my barber I hated the fade he kept giving me. Told the guy at the bagel shop to stop putting tomatoes on my order. Freedom. It tastes like control. Sharp and bitter and necessary. And then, just when I thought the saga was finally behind me, I got a package. No return address. Just a white box, hand-delivered, with my name on it in that delicate cursive I knew too well. I didn't open it for 2 days. I just let it sit on the counter, daring me. Eventually, curiosity won. Or closure. Hard to say. Inside was a single object. A bracelet. Not the one Jess always wore, the one with the initials. Another bracelet. Gold. Thinner. Engraved on the inside. For the nights you listened. No card. No note. Just the weight of silence and metal. I stared at it for a long time. And then I understood. This wasn't from Jess. This was from Ryan's wife. Vanessa. I turned the bracelet over. On the underside of the clasp, tiny and precise, were 2 initials, VA. Not a declaration of love. A gesture. A thank you. Maybe even a warning. I placed it in the drawer with my old wedding ring and the key to the lockbox I hadn't opened since Jess moved out. Then I booked a trip. Not to find myself, or some other dramatic cliche. I just went fishing. Literally. Upstate cabin. No service. Just me, a couple of books, Bailey, and a lake that didn't ask questions. And for once, I didn't feel like I was escaping. I felt like I was arriving. The last few nights there, I kept a notepad by the bed. I didn't plan on writing anything. But eventually I did. Not a story. Not a memoir. Just a list. of every lie I had ignored, every instinct I had silenced, every time I convinced myself that doubt was paranoia. It was a long list. But the last item? That was the most important. I forgive myself. Not her. Me. Because the hardest part of betrayal isn't the exposure. It's the recovery. It's realizing you participated in your own deception. And deciding, really deciding, never to do it again. When I got home, I sold the house. Moved into a place half the size, twice the charm. Somewhere with no trophy case. No hidden keys. No ghost of shared anniversaries. Just clean walls. New locks. And room to breathe. People ask if I'll ever date again. Maybe. But next time, I won't look for a partner who mirrors my life. I'll look for one who respects it. And if I never find that, I'm good. I've got Bailey. I've got peace. And somewhere in a drawer, a bracelet I never asked for, engraved by someone who knew exactly what it meant to finally stop pretending. Funny, isn't it? How sometimes the thing that breaks you is exactly what sets you free. Subscribe to the channel